Elvira lives in the remote village of Lolove in Sardinia. It's the kind of village where the streets are cobbled and only a few families still live there. She is one of the few women who still make a typical Sardinian flatbread called pane carasau in the traditional way.
Io sono Elvira, adesso prepariamo il pane carasau, abito all'Olove.
The dough uses fresh yeast, but only a very small amount, so it barely rises. She dissolves it in tepid water. She's using a very finely ground durum wheat called semolata, which contains no bran.
L'acqua si aggiunge piano piano, come le serve.
She forms the dough, which then has to be kneaded very thoroughly, and so she uses this special dough kneading machine, which you only find in Sardinia. She passes the dough through the rollers for at least 10 minutes. It should be completely smooth with no bubbles.
Si può anche ammorbidire ancora, non è che appena, non, sempre con le dita, senza metterci altra acqua.
Elvira forms a cylinder and then slices dough discs.
Non si devono trovare né grumi e né le sfoglie, deve essere così, compatta.
Using her hands, she stretches the dough out a little, before rolling it to about 35 centimeters in diameter.
Alla levatezza, poi se lei lo guarda quando vede anche se è lavorato bene o se ci sono delle sfoglie dentro il pane.
Elvira says it's important not to press too hard, otherwise the bread won't puff in the right way. To achieve this, she applies pressure to the ends of her small rolling pin. She places the finished dough disc on a linen cloth and covers it. She repeats the process, so there is a linen-covered pile of pane carasau. These need to rest. How long depends on the yeast and the temperature, but it's usually about 2 hours. So we're having a great discussion about semolata, and it's a really finely ground durum wheat flour that's used for pane carasau. If you try using semola rimacinata, which you hear me saying quite a lot in these videos, it is much harder to work, so you need this really finely ground durum wheat flour. Meanwhile, Elvira gathers some branches from mastic bushes. The oils in this shrub have a wonderful resinous aroma. Elvira ties them together to form a brush called a scopile. This is used to sweep the coals to one side in the brick oven.
Allora, io ho preso il lentischio per pulire il forno, per poi per cuocere il pane carasau, in modo che sia fresco il lentischio, perché il forno ha una temperatura alta, se no brucierebbe tutto, capito? E questo si va, adesso lo devo legare per poterlo usare come una scopa normale dentro al forno, però.
It also helps to infuse the breads with a subtle aromatic tang. Elvira has a particular way of positioning herself in front of her wood-burning fireplace. She sits with a carpet over her legs to protect them. She places a dough disc on her paddle and slips it onto the floor of the oven. The fire has been going for several hours, so it's incredibly hot, and the bread balloons immediately. Elvira turns it over and a minute later drops it onto a second paddle. she brushes off the ash. She uses a knife to separate the flatbread into 2 sheets. She checks for tears and holes. Then she plops them on one side and bakes the next dough disc. Making pane carasau was traditionally women's work, with the skills passed from mother to daughter.
Questo meschino è andato a farsi benedire.
Eventually, Elvira has a pile of split bread sheets. She takes each one and puts it back into her oven to bake until it is crisp, which takes about 30 seconds. This time, the sheets are weighted so they stay flat. They're called carta de musica in Italian, sheet music, because they look like parchment. Once cooled, they will keep for a couple of months or more.
L'operazione della cottura e carasatura è già finita.
You can nibble them as is, but a popular way to use them is a kind of lasagna called pane frattau. Elvira chops up an onion and softens it in olive oil. She rinses and adds a bunch of parsley and basil to the pan with a bay leaf. She pours in some passata, seasons it with salt and adds a bit of water. Then she lets the sauce simmer for about 15 minutes. To assemble the pane frattau, Elvira dots a plate with some of the tomato sauce. She dunks a sheet of pane carasau in simmering water and places it on the plate. She spoons some more tomato sauce over the bread and sprinkles grated pecorino cheese to make the next layer. She repeats this 3 more times. Lunch is ready in a few minutes.
Questo è il pane frattau, il piatto pronto da servire. Grazie.
And of course I have to try it.
Buon, grazie. Oh. Okay. It's going in.
This is a tasty, easy lunch.
This is so good. Non vale?
But Elvira hasn't finished cooking for us. Come back next week when she shares her recipe for la dedos.